Ava Carter had always been different from everyone around her, a quiet observer in the busy, noisy life of Seattle, preferring her own company and the soft comfort of books and music to crowded social gatherings. She worked at a mid-sized marketing firm, where efficiency and charm were rewarded more than intelligence or dedication, and lately, she had begun noticing a change in the atmosphere, whispers that followed her down the hallways, subtle glances that lingered too long, and colleagues who suddenly seemed to compete for attention or attempt to undermine her at every opportunity. While many would have felt threatened, Ava felt a strange thrill rather than fear. She knew herself well, knew the inner calm and control she possessed, and a quiet confidence settled in her chest that no one could shake. Then the new hires arrived, confident, charismatic, and loud, the kind of people who assumed dominance with ease and expected deference from those around them. They moved in with quick smiles, seemingly harmless jokes, and casual comments designed to test her patience, but Ava studied them carefully, noticing the subtle cracks behind their facades, the insecurity that hid behind arrogance, and the slight hesitation in their voices that betrayed a fear they themselves refused to acknowledge. At first, she had tried to ignore it, focusing on her projects, drafting campaigns, and managing client expectations with her usual precision, but soon it became clear that they were not just casual competitors, they were determined to challenge her, to see her falter, and perhaps even to claim victories in places she had long considered her own. As the days passed, Ava felt a mixture of intrigue and determination. Each subtle jab, each pointed comment, and each dismissive glance became a test she was more than willing to pass, and a sense of control spread through her like a quiet fire, warming her from inside and giving her a thrill she had not expected. One late evening, she sat at her apartment window overlooking the glowing city, reflecting on the day's events, the interactions that had left her colleagues impressed yet secretly uncomfortable, and the ways in which she had managed to handle every challenge without losing her composure or grace. She sipped her tea, the steam curling upward like a soft reminder of her calm presence, and thought about the challenges ahead, the projects that were promised to push her limits, and the people who were certain they could intimidate her. A knock at her door startled her briefly, and she opened it to find Michael, a colleague she had always respected for his quiet intelligence and subtle sense of humor, standing there with a folder in hand, his eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and amusement. He teased gently, asking if she was truly ready for what was coming, and she responded with the same quiet confidence she had carried all her life, telling him that she could handle all of it easily, though she did not reveal the small thrill in her chest at the thought of facing challenges alongside someone who seemed to understand her in ways no one else did. Michael smiled knowingly, leaving her with a sense of warmth and connection that contrasted with the cool, determined focus she had maintained all day, and as she closed the door, Ava felt a surge of energy and anticipation, realizing that the upcoming days would not only test her skills and patience but also stir emotions she had long kept at bay, hinting at moments of subtle romance and quiet companionship amid the fast-paced challenges of her professional life. Alone again, she allowed herself a small smile, thinking of the subtle games of intellect, charm, and resilience that would unfold in the days to come, and knowing that no matter what others tried to throw at her, she would face it all with calm precision, grace, and perhaps, for the first time in a long while, a soft hope that someone might stand beside her as she did. The city lights twinkled like distant stars, reflecting off the rain-slick streets below, and Ava felt ready, not just for the professional trials, but for the gentle stirrings in her heart that Michael's presence had awakened, a promise of connection and understanding that she had long thought was reserved for novels and dreams. She recalled the moments in her life when she had faced challenges alone, when her confidence and quiet determination had carried her through misunderstandings, personal setbacks, and the subtle judgments of those around her, and she realized that the thrill of overcoming obstacles had always been intertwined with her longing for companionship, for someone who saw her not just as capable but as deeply human. And now, with the new team challenging her, Michael by her side even in the smallest gestures, and her own strength as her guide, Ava felt an exhilarating mix of courage and vulnerability, knowing that the days ahead would test not only her professional skills but the resilience of her heart, offering moments of quiet triumph, soft connection, and the kind of emotional growth that could transform a life in ways both subtle and profound. The night deepened, and as Ava prepared for bed, she reflected on the delicate balance she had always maintained between independence and desire, between the calm strength that defined her and the tender emotions she had long hidden, and she realized that the upcoming week would require her to harness both, to navigate professional challenges with finesse while allowing herself to acknowledge feelings she had long ignored, a dual challenge that thrilled her as much as it tested her. As she drifted off to sleep, the city humming softly beneath her, Ava felt a quiet certainty. No matter what came, she could handle it all, not with brute force, but with intelligence, grace, and an open heart, ready for both the trials and the unexpected joys that awaited. And with Michael's quiet presence lingering in her thoughts, she allowed herself to imagine a future where strength and vulnerability coexisted, a future where challenges were met with courage and companionship, and where the heart could remain open even in the face of the unexpected. The week that followed tested Ava more than she had anticipated, yet she embraced every challenge with her characteristic calm and precision, moving through the office like a force of quiet confidence while the new team members struggled to keep up with her composure and insight, their attempts to unsettle her falling flat as she navigated every meeting, presentation, and project deadline with a poise that drew both admiration and subtle envy. And amidst the professional storm, Michael remained a constant, his quiet presence like a steady anchor in a sea of chaos, sometimes offering a supportive word, a knowing glance, or a shared laugh that broke the tension of the day. And Ava found herself increasingly aware of his nearness, of the subtle ways his attention lingered on her, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her, and how his eyes seemed to notice things no one else did, like the small crease of worry she tried to hide or the tiny smile she gave herself when a solution clicked in her mind, and each interaction left a flutter in her chest that was both exciting and unnerving, because while she had always handled challenges alone, this new, quiet connection with Michael added a layer of vulnerability she had not expected to feel in a professional setting, yet she welcomed it, the warmth of companionship mixing with her sense of accomplishment in a way that made even the busiest, most chaotic days feel bearable, almost joyous. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of client presentations that had demanded every ounce of her focus, Michael walked with her to the office parking garage, the soft hum of the elevator echoing around them as he casually held a folder filled with reports that would have daunted anyone else, and he looked at her with a mixture of admiration and something unspoken, something that made her heart skip even as her mind reminded her of the importance of staying composed, of maintaining control over her professional persona. Yet she couldn't ignore the way the evening air, dim lights, and his easy presence seemed to wrap around her like a comforting embrace, as though the world had slowed for a moment just to let them exist in this quiet space, away from expectations and the constant judgment of others. "You're incredible, you know that," he said softly, his voice low enough that only she could hear, and the words landed in her heart like a feather, delicate but undeniable, making her cheeks warm in a way that had nothing to do with embarrassment and everything to do with the unexpected tenderness she felt for him. He continued, telling her that he had noticed not just her skill and intelligence, but her resilience, her grace under pressure, the way she seemed to glide through chaos without losing herself. And Ava felt a mixture of pride and surprise, because while she had always known she could handle challenges, having someone see it and appreciate it so sincerely was a new sensation, a quiet thrill that settled deep in her chest and made her pulse quicken with anticipation and longing. She tried to brush it off, focusing on the folders in her hand and the path ahead, yet the pause between them lingered, filled with a shared awareness of something deeper, something neither of them yet named but both felt, a connection that went beyond professional admiration, stretching into quiet intimacy that was safe, subtle, and profoundly affecting. And Ava realized that while she had mastered the art of facing challenges alone, this quiet closeness, this unspoken bond, was a challenge of a different kind, one that required vulnerability she had rarely allowed herself to feel, and yet, she wanted to explore it, even as her mind reminded her to stay focused on the tasks ahead. The next few days were a whirlwind of client emergencies, tight deadlines, and unexpected problems, but Ava's ability to remain calm, think creatively, and act decisively never faltered, and even her competitors began to recognize her skill, some grudgingly, some with admiration, and in those fleeting moments of victory, she found herself stealing glances at Michael, noticing how he sometimes stayed back to watch her handle difficult situations, how he offered small words of encouragement just when she needed them, and how he seemed to understand without explanation the pressures she faced, the thoughts racing behind her calm exterior. and it made her heart swell with a quiet emotion she had not expected to experience in the midst of professional chaos. Late one night, as they both stayed behind to resolve a last-minute client issue, the office emptied around them, leaving only the hum of computers and the soft tapping of keyboards, and Michael handed her a warm cup of coffee, their fingers brushing briefly in a way that sent an unspoken shiver through her, a reminder that there was more to life than spreadsheets and deadlines, that connection and trust could exist even in the busiest, most professional of settings, and Ava realized she had been longing for this, someone who saw her strength, who valued her presence, who could stand beside her without overshadowing or doubting her, someone who could be a quiet partner in both her victories and her struggles. The night deepened, rain tapping lightly against the office windows, turning the city outside into a blur of lights, and for a fleeting moment, the world seemed to disappear, leaving only Ava and Michael, their shared silence filled with understanding and possibility, a delicate tension that neither wanted to break but both wanted to acknowledge, and she felt the thrill of emotions she had long suppressed, the delicate balance between strength and vulnerability, independence and connection, and it exhilarated her in ways she could not yet name. Suddenly, a phone call broke the spell, an urgent client matter demanding immediate attention, and Ava's calm composure returned instantly, but now, unlike before, she felt a subtle warmth from Michael's gaze, a silent message of support and admiration that made her feel stronger rather than alone, and she realized that while she could handle any professional challenge with skill, there was a new, quiet strength in knowing she was not entirely alone, that someone understood her, appreciated her, and perhaps cared for her in ways that transcended mere friendship or workplace camaraderie, and that realization both thrilled and frightened her, because it opened her heart to possibilities she had long kept at bay. As they worked together late into the night, solving problems, coordinating with clients, and managing unexpected issues, Ava felt a quiet exhilaration, the kind that comes from facing the storm and finding someone beside you who shares your strength, your focus, and, unexpectedly, your heart, and she began to understand that handling challenges was no longer just about proving her competence or her resilience, it was about discovering the joy, excitement, and subtle intimacy that came from sharing those moments with someone who saw her completely, someone who could stand beside her in both triumph and vulnerability. By the time they finally left the office, exhausted but victorious, the city was quiet and sparkling under the late-night lights, and Michael offered a soft smile, a simple gesture that spoke volumes, and Ava found herself smiling back, her chest light, her heart fluttering with the realization that strength and connection could coexist, that she could be capable, independent, and resilient while also allowing herself to feel, to hope, and to acknowledge the quiet stirrings of attraction and emotional intimacy that had grown steadily over the past week, and she knew that the days ahead would continue to challenge her, both professionally and personally, but now she was ready, armed not only with her skills and determination but with the quiet thrill of shared connection and the subtle promise of something more, something tender, profound, and worth exploring. The days following their late-night office encounter brought a new rhythm to Ava's life, a mixture of professional challenges and the quiet tension of emotions she was only beginning to understand, and she found herself navigating each day with a heightened awareness of Michael's presence, noticing the way he anticipated problems before they arose, the small gestures that revealed his thoughtfulness, and the subtle ways his eyes lingered on her when he thought she wasn't looking, which stirred something tender inside her heart that she hadn't expected to feel in such a structured, professional environment, and it made her reflect on how rare it was to encounter someone who truly saw her, not just for her skills and calm demeanor, but for the person she was beneath the surface, strong, independent, but also quietly yearning for connection and understanding. One afternoon, a sudden project complication forced them to work late together again, the office empty except for the hum of computers and the occasional flicker of fluorescent lights, and as they sorted through client emails and brainstormed solutions, their conversation drifted from business matters to more personal reflections, with Michael sharing stories of his own past struggles, small triumphs, and moments of vulnerability that made Ava feel closer to him, as if the walls she had built around her emotions were slowly lowering in his presence, allowing her to acknowledge feelings she had long kept private, feelings that mingled admiration, curiosity, and a subtle longing that made her chest tighten with awareness. The rain outside turned into a steady downpour, streaking the windows with water and creating a soft, rhythmic background to their focused work, and when Michael handed her a warm cup of coffee, their fingers brushed once again, a fleeting touch that seemed to linger longer in their minds than on their skin, sparking an unspoken understanding that this connection between them was more than casual, more than coincidence, and Ava felt a thrill in the quiet intimacy of the moment. Realizing that her heart could carry both the strength she relied upon professionally and the vulnerability she had allowed herself to feel with him. As the evening wore on, the office quiet and the rain softening outside, Michael glanced at her with a mixture of admiration and concern, gently reminding her that she didn't have to bear every burden alone, that her resilience was remarkable, but it was also okay to accept support, to share the weight of challenges with someone who understood, and Ava found herself nodding, feeling a mixture of relief and hesitation, because she had spent so long relying solely on her own strength that allowing herself to trust someone else, even in small ways, felt both exciting and daunting, a delicate balance between independence and connection that she had never fully experienced before. They paused for a brief moment to step by the window, watching the city lights blurred by the rain, and Michael's presence beside her created a quiet warmth that made her aware of her own emotions, of the fluttering in her chest when he spoke softly or offered a small gesture of care, and she realized that the professional challenges she had once faced alone now felt different, more manageable, and even more meaningful when shared with someone who truly appreciated her, who could stand beside her without diminishing her capabilities or overshadowing her achievements, and that realization filled her with a quiet, exhilarating hope. Just as she began to feel comfortable in this new rhythm, a sudden fire alarm rang, startling both of them and causing papers to flutter across their desks and coffee to spill, forcing them into a chaotic scramble that tested their ability to remain calm under pressure. And in the middle of that unexpected emergency, Ava instinctively took Michael's hand, guiding him through the confusion with the same precision and calm she had always relied upon, and in that moment, she realized that true strength was not only about handling challenges alone but also about finding someone who could face chaos beside you, who could share both the responsibility and the unspoken comfort of solidarity, and the realization filled her with a mix of pride, relief, and a subtle warmth that she hadn't experienced before. Once outside, soaked but laughing at the absurdity of the situation, Ava felt a deep, quiet bond forming between her and Michael, a bond strengthened not just by mutual respect and admiration but by shared experiences that revealed vulnerability, courage, and the human need for connection. And as they stood under the soft glow of streetlights, catching their breath and shaking off the rain, Ava realized that her life had shifted in ways she hadn't anticipated, that her ability to handle professional challenges had always been a source of pride, but the emotional challenges, the ones that made her heart race and her chest tighten in anticipation, were now equally important, shaping her understanding of strength, trust, and the delicate, thrilling potential of romance. Over the next few days, Ava noticed subtle changes in herself. She laughed more freely with Michael, allowed moments of quiet reflection in his presence, and felt a growing comfort in expressing thoughts and emotions that had previously remained locked away, and even in the busiest moments at work, she carried with her a sense of reassurance that came from knowing someone understood her, that she was not navigating life's challenges entirely alone, and that awareness, combined with her own unwavering competence, made her feel unstoppable in a way that was both empowering and emotionally fulfilling. One evening, as they stayed late to prepare for an important client presentation, Michael paused beside her desk, leaning slightly to offer a suggestion, and their hands brushed again, this time holding a shared glance that spoke volumes about the trust and quiet affection growing between them, a connection that neither needed to define immediately but that was unmistakably present, shaping every interaction, making each challenge feel lighter, and each success feel sweeter, because it was experienced together. The office lights dimmed, the city outside dark and sparkling with reflections of streetlights on wet pavement, and Ava found herself stealing a moment to look at Michael, to notice the subtle kindness in his expression, the patience in his movements, and the quiet support that made her heart flutter in a way that was new, exciting, and profoundly comforting all at once. And she realized that the balance she had always sought between independence and emotional connection was beginning to form. Naturally, a harmony she had never expected to find, and yet, now that it existed, it felt undeniable, thrilling, and deeply reassuring. By the time they left the office together, Late at night with rain-soaked streets reflecting the city lights, Ava understood that her life had changed, not in ways that could be planned or predicted, but in ways that were real, heartfelt, and quietly transformative. She could handle professional challenges with skill and grace, yes, but she was also discovering the beauty of shared vulnerability, the thrill of emotional intimacy, and the deep satisfaction of having someone who not only understood her strengths but could also stand beside her as she navigated both triumphs and quiet moments of doubt, and that combination of resilience, connection, and subtle romance created a powerful new sense of confidence and anticipation for the days ahead. As they walked through the streets, side by side under umbrellas, sharing quiet conversation and small laughs, Ava felt a wave of contentment mixed with exhilaration, knowing that life was no longer just about proving herself to the world but also about exploring the tender possibilities that came with opening her heart, trusting someone, and discovering that true strength was as much about connection as it was about skill and determination, and she allowed herself to imagine a future where challenges, both professional and emotional, were faced together, where laughter, support, and quiet understanding became part of her daily life, and where her heart, once guarded and cautious, now beat with hope, longing, and the gentle, thrilling promise of love yet to be fully realized. As the days unfolded, Ava found herself navigating a delicate balance between her professional life and the quiet emotions that had begun to take root with Michael, and she realized that the challenges she once faced alone were now shared, creating a sense of ease and excitement she had never experienced before, because while she still moved through meetings, deadlines, and projects with her usual calm precision, there was a new layer to her confidence, a confidence that came from knowing she had someone beside her who understood her strengths, admired her resilience, and offered quiet support without overshadowing her independence, and that realization added a soft glow to every interaction, making even the busiest days feel charged with possibility and subtle joy. One evening, Michael invited her to a small art gallery opening, a serene space filled with soft light, gentle music, and people moving quietly through the exhibits, and as they wandered from painting to painting, their conversation flowed effortlessly, blending thoughts on art, life, and subtle glimpses into their personal experiences, and Ava felt a growing closeness that went beyond professional admiration, a tender connection that made her heart beat faster yet kept her grounded, because every gesture, glance, and smile between them carried a sense of genuine understanding and respect that was rare and deeply comforting, something she had longed for but had not dared to hope for in her daily routine. When they stopped before a painting of a stormy sea, the contrast between chaos and calm reflecting turbulent waves and quiet reflections, Michael turned to her, his expression serious yet gentle, and said, "You've handled everything life has thrown at you, Ava, but even the strongest hearts deserve someone who sees them completely, who stands beside them, and who values both their strength and their tenderness." And those words landed softly in her chest, resonating with everything she had experienced over the past weeks, from the subtle challenges at work to the shared laughter and quiet moments of connection that had deepened her feelings, leaving her both vulnerable and exhilarated at the same time. Ava looked at him, her emotions a whirlwind of relief, longing, and a tentative hope, and admitted quietly, almost in a whisper, that she had always tried to face everything alone, relying solely on her skills, her composure, and her inner strength, but now, she felt a growing willingness to allow someone to share that journey with her, to walk beside her in both triumph and uncertainty, and the admission made the air between them feel electric yet gentle, charged with unspoken promises and the thrill of emotional intimacy that neither needed to rush or define immediately. Michael reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers in a simple, yet profoundly meaningful gesture, and in that moment, Ava realized that the challenges she had once approached with solitary determination now felt lighter, more manageable, and infinitely more rewarding when shared with someone who saw her entirely, admired her resilience, and cared deeply about her well-being. And the warmth that spread through her chest was unlike anything she had ever experienced, a combination of safety, excitement, and the quiet joy of being truly understood. As they walked slowly through the gallery, side by side, the soft hum of conversation around them fading into a gentle background, Ava allowed herself to imagine a life where strength and vulnerability coexisted, where professional success and personal connection did not compete but complemented each other. and where love was not a distraction from her independence but a source of support and inspiration that made her feel more complete, more alive, and more capable of facing the world with grace. Over the following weeks, their bond deepened in subtle, meaningful ways: shared lunches, quiet conversations during late work nights, small gestures of thoughtfulness, and the occasional glance that lingered a heartbeat too long to be accidental. And through these moments, Ava learned that intimacy did not have to be dramatic or overt to be powerful, that the quiet presence of someone who truly understood her could bring as much joy, comfort, and excitement as any grand gesture, and that the heart's capacity for connection was as vital to her strength as her skill, intelligence, and resilience. One rainy evening, they walked together through the glistening streets after a long day at the office, the reflections of city lights on wet pavement creating a soft, magical ambience, and Ava found herself stealing glances at Michael, noticing the way he adjusted his coat, the gentle attentiveness in his posture, the quiet humor that occasionally lit his eyes, and she felt a rush of affection that mingled effortlessly with her admiration for his competence, patience, and subtle kindness, and she realized that the combination of professional respect and emotional closeness was creating a bond that felt unshakable, tender, and profoundly rewarding. The days continued with professional demands, client meetings, and unexpected challenges, but Ava's perspective had shifted. Where she once relied solely on her own skill to navigate difficulties, she now felt the steady reassurance of shared experience, the joy of knowing that someone could witness her strength, celebrate her victories, and offer support during moments of uncertainty, and that awareness brought with it a lightness, a quiet confidence that made her approach every situation with renewed energy, clarity, and subtle excitement for what lay ahead. On a particularly quiet evening, as they sat together at a small cafe near the gallery district, Michael reached across the table, taking her hand in his once again, and spoke softly about the journey they had shared, the challenges, the late nights, the moments of laughter, and the unspoken support that had grown steadily between them, and Ava felt a surge of emotion, realizing that she had not only navigated professional challenges successfully but had also allowed her heart to open, to feel deeply, and to trust another person in a way that was both exhilarating and comforting, a rare combination that left her both empowered and content. The realization that strength and vulnerability could coexist, that independence did not preclude emotional intimacy, and that love and companionship could exist without diminishing personal achievement filled Ava with a quiet joy, and she found herself imagining a future where every challenge, every success, every quiet moment of reflection or laughter could be shared, making life richer, more meaningful, and profoundly beautiful, and she allowed herself to savor the anticipation of that possibility, feeling her heart expand with hope, affection, and a deep sense of fulfillment. As the weeks passed, Ava and Michael continued to navigate the interplay of work and personal connection, learning to communicate with subtle understanding, to share responsibilities without losing individuality, and to cherish quiet moments of closeness that revealed layers of emotion previously unexplored. And through it all, Ava realized that the greatest triumph was not merely professional success or personal achievement, but the ability to balance strength, grace, independence, and emotional intimacy, to find someone who complemented her without overshadowing her, and to allow herself to experience the fullness of life's joys, both small and profound. By the time they walked through the gallery opening one evening, hand in hand, amidst soft lighting and quiet conversation, Ava understood that life had shifted in a way that was deeply satisfying, thrilling, and nurturing. She had faced challenges, proven her capability, and maintained her independence, yet she had also embraced connection, intimacy, and the subtle excitement of romance that was gentle, respectful, and profoundly fulfilling, and she felt a sense of peace and anticipation for the future that was stronger than any professional accolade or personal achievement alone could provide. That night, as they stepped outside into the cool air, the city lights reflecting off wet streets and the distant hum of traffic echoing softly around them, Ava felt a quiet certainty settle in her heart. She could handle anything life threw at her, not just with skill, determination, and composure, but also with love, trust, and shared experience by her side, and that understanding transformed her perception of strength, intimacy, and success, creating a harmonious blend of emotional fulfillment, professional confidence, and tender connection that would shape her life in ways both immediate and lasting, leaving her heart open, her spirit light, and her soul ready for whatever adventures awaited, confident in the knowledge that she was not alone, that she could face challenges with grace, and that love, gentle and supportive, could flourish alongside her independence, making every day richer, brighter, and profoundly meaningful.